Are they or are they not trading Corbin Burnes? Well, you thought a couple of weeks ago that the possibility of them trading Burnes was a high possibility. Now, some of the experts out there right now, the insiders say, well, they might be keeping Burnes and Adames too. We'll get to all that. David Gasper from Reviewing the Brew is our special guest. We'll get to him coming up next here on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hope you all had a great Thanksgiving. This is Chuck Freeman, first-year host of Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Find us. We're the number one podcast on the internet because the great Brewers fans out there, Spotify, Apple, Google, we're on all the major downloads. And, of course, download us on YouTube. Go to Locked On Brewers on YouTube. Hit the search button, hit Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell. It'll alert you every time we drop an episode here on Locked On Brewers. We love the folks from Reviewing the Brew, and we haven't had him on yet. And I'm ashamed to say that we haven't because nothing against him. We've been doing a lot of solo shows all year long, but David Gasper from Reviewing the Brew and WIBA Radio, like I said, terrific work. Wrote a nice piece on Corbin Burnes. Go check it out. Dave, great to get you on the show and talking some Brewer baseball with you, my friend.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. Thanks for having me. I'm always excited to come on and talk Brewers, and it's an exciting time for sure.
Before we talk about Corbin Burnes, are you getting a little antsy that the Brewers haven't really made any moves so far? In fact, they've gone backwards, and we're looking over the fence there, and we're seeing the Cardinals making pitching moves for Sonny Gray.
Yeah, it's been a rough start to the offseason, it seems like. I mean, you get some minor moves, guys like Oliver Dunn and Jake Bowers, but it's nothing really exciting. Obviously, I'd like to see them make some bigger moves for some of those top guys. But, I mean, keep in mind, last year, the William Contreras trade didn't happen until December 12th. So I'm not too worried about it just yet. There's still plenty of guys out there on the market. When guys start going off and getting signed and getting taken off the board, and the Brewers still don't end up with anybody, then I may be a little more concerned. But as of right now, there is still so much offseason left, so many names still out on the market.
Because we're keeping an eye on the Cardinals and the Cubs and other teams in our division. And I see the Cubs, haven't really done much yet except for take away our manager. And what the Cardinals are doing, they signed 2 starting pitchers and giving Sonny Gray that contract. He's got 6 pitches right now. I mean, the Cardinals definitely are getting better in the offseason.
Yeah, they've added a couple of arms to that rotation, and they certainly needed it. But also, the average age of that rotation is 35 years old, and that's even with Adam Wainwright retiring this past offseason. So they got a lot of older guys. Lance Lynn that they got, I think, led the league in home runs allowed. Kyle Gibson, he also struggled last year. So, I mean, Sonny Gray, that's definitely a good addition for St. Louis. But they're still not a team I'm concerned about just yet. They have a lot of holes on that roster. But they're making moves. They're being aggressive. They don't like being down in the cellar, as fun as it was seeing them down there this past year. But they are going to be doing everything they can to avoid a repeat of that in 2024.
We're talking with David Gasper here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. This is Chuck Freeman. All right. The news came out, from Ken Rosenthal and maybe a couple of others as well, that the Brewers might not be trading Corbin Burnes in the offseason. I thought it was highly likely, David, that this was going to happen. But now it sounds like they're going to keep a hold on him. I know if they trade him, they're going to be really short on the strength of their team, which was the starting pitching. But does that surprise you that maybe Rosenthal says, hey, they're going to keep him and maybe keep Adames too?
No, it doesn't surprise me at all. Not since the Brandon Woodruff injury. I don't think that's a surprise. I think I was like you and most others that, going into this offseason, the Brewers are probably going to trade one of Burnes, Adames, or Woodruff. But then Woodruff's injury, missing all of next year, it really changed everything with that whole group. And the Brewers end up having to non-tender Brandon Woodruff, which was heartbreaking for all involved. But then, I mean, you lose Woodruff, you can't really afford to lose Burnes either. As soon as it was announced that Woodruff was going to miss, I'm like, I don't see Burnes going anywhere now. I don't think they can afford to trade him. And that seems to be the way that they're leaning right now, because pitching has been the strength of this roster for the past several years. You just lost Woodruff. If you lose Burnes as well in the same offseason, and you just have a rotation led by Freddie Peralta and then Adrian Hauser as your number 2 starter, that your rotation is not a strength. So if your rotation isn't going to be a strength, you need to make hitting your strength. And this offense is nowhere close to being the strength of a playoff team. So I think you have to keep Burnes at this point. There's still a ton of pitching out on the market, and there are going to be teams that are willing to pay for Corbin Burnes. But you're going to have to wait until after those top starters go off the market. And then, say the Dodgers miss out on all their top targets in the pitching market. Do they offer up an even bigger package for Corbin Burnes, an offer that Matt Arnold can't say no to? Then where are you at if you're Matt Arnold? But I think right now you have to hold on to Corbin Burnes and make it one more year with him.
What if you get some nice bats in return and like you said, upgrade the offense and go that route?
Yeah, I mean, that'd be great. If the Dodgers want to send Freddie Freeman on over while eating half his salary, I think that'd be great. that'd be fun. I'd do that deal.
How about Pete Alonso? Would you, if you did a deal with the Mets? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso's only got one more year of control, but I mean, like that'd be an interesting scenario for both sides, really. But yeah, I mean, it's going to take something like that, I think, for the Brewers to consider trading Burnes at this point. And I think they have to pull back from that idea, because I figured going into this offseason, they would get rid of one of Burnes, Woodruff, or Adames. If you get rid of 2 or more, it looks like you're tanking. You're trying to rebuild and pull back from competing, which the Brewers have said time and again they will not do. They do not want to enter into a rebuild. They want to stay competitive every single year, including 2024. So they can't really afford to lose 2 of their big 3. They've already lost 1 with the Brandon Woodruff non-tender, and I think that's the maximum that they can lose.
All right, Dave, we got cut off there. Finish up what you were saying. You were saying the big 3, they can't afford to lose too many pieces off of that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, coming into this offseason, I figured they could maybe trade away one of their big 3 of Corbin Burnes, Brandon Woodruff, and Willy Adames. But if you move 2 of them, it's going to look like you're tanking and really taking a step back from competing. It's going to be hard for the team to compete without 2 of those 3. And they've already lost Brandon Woodruff to a non-tender and to an injury. So they really can't afford to lose another player from that group, whether it be Burnes or Adames, without this team taking a serious step back in 2024.
Boy, it sounds like there's a market out there for Woody right now that, maybe some teams are looking for a 2-year deal maybe for Woody. Yeah,
it seems like, a majority of the league was the last report I saw that has interest in Woodruff. And I mean, who wouldn't really? I mean, if you've got the money to pay him for a 2-year deal, if you're taking a shot on a guy to have a bounce back year, Brandon Woodruff is going to be your best bet. You can get him to buy low. You can sign him to a relatively cheap deal. Coming into this, most teams probably would think Brandon Woodruff would cost you $100 million. He's not going to cost you anywhere close to that at this point. And you can sign him for cheap this year, not expecting much from him, but getting the chance to have a bounce back, healthy Brandon Woodruff in 2025 for relatively cheap. That'd be a great deal for pretty much any team in baseball to get. So I know the Brewers have said that they are open to bringing him back, and they're probably hoping to bring him back. But there are going to be other teams out there with far more resources that are going to be willing and able to offer Woodruff more money to rehab with them.
I'm wondering that Mark Attanasio, because I think these are Attanasio calls. I think that's the call. They're all, because he's the one that holds the purse strings on this. If he thought, well, we're not going to sign, I'm not going to give him that kind of money anyway. maybe he just didn't want to do it anyway. And he said, well, why would I pay him an extra 2 years if in the long term, I'm not going to re-sign him? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think with Woodruff, I mean, trying to get a 2-year deal done, and just for Woodruff, with the amount of money that he's going to want to get, maybe either in that first year or even in the second year, depending on how much you backload it, it'd be a lot of money to give to a pitcher coming off an injury that he may never be the same from. Pitchers that have shoulder capsule surgery, a lot of times they really don't come back to being the type of pitcher that they were before. We saw Johan Santana go through this. He was never the same after. We've seen a number of pitchers over the years that have had this type of injury, and when they come back, they just aren't the same elite level performer as they previously were. So it'd be a ton of risk on the Brewers side. I understand why they didn't want to pay that much for that much risk. So it's a tough part of it. You'd love to see Woodruff get a chance to rehab and just, throw, one more pitch as a member of the Brewers, but it just wasn't going to be in the cards.
David, hang on right there. I'm going to ask you whether or not Burnes will get traded. And what about the pitching staff? What your pitching staff looks like going into what could be, a big off season. But right now, as he mentioned, I mean, there's a possibility that Hauser could be the number 2 starter. We'll get to that coming up a little bit. The show is brought to you in part by the good folks over at FanDuel, FanDuel.com. The NFL season, college football, college basketball, it's all going down. And America's number one sportsbook is FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. It's that easy, and it's that simple. $150 if your team wins. So if you're thinking about joining FanDuel and getting into the game, there's no better place, no better time to get in on the action right now because everything's going on. The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, spreads, player props, over and unders, all that. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Kick off the NFL season, right? FanDuel's the official partner of the NFL. But, I've given you guys that advice last week for Thanksgiving. I said, hey, the relatives are coming on. You want to watch the game. You want to have a buck or two on the game. FanDuel, I hope some of you guys took advantage of it and take advantage of this offer. $150 if your team wins in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. You can trust them. They're very good. And that's why they're the number one sports book in America. America's number one sports book, FanDuel. Chuck Freeman here, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Thank you, all you everydayers, for joining us on Google, Spotify, Apple, on all the major downloads. We are on all those. And of course, you go to YouTube, Locked On Brewers, search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. We're coming right back with more from Reviewing the Brew. David Gasper continues with us next here on Locked On Brewers. Welcome back to Locked On Brewers. Chuck Freeman here. Let's bring back David Gasper. And Dave, thanks for sitting past that break there. And, your starting rotation, what do you see right now as your 5-man, assuming that Burnes coming back?
Assuming that Burnes is coming back, you got Burnes Peralta as your 1-2 right now. Adrian Hauser is probably going to be your 3. And right now you're looking at Colin Ray as your number 4 starter, and Aaron Ashby maybe in the mix there for number 5, along with Jansen Junk, and then a couple of your prospects, Robert Gasser, Carlos Rodriguez, are guys that are going to be competing for those spots. So that's really kind of what you're looking at with this group. Aaron Ashby missed this entire past season after undergoing arthroscopic shoulder surgery. And, he made some rehab starts, but the Brewers didn't feel like he was ready to come back and pitch in the regular season. But he should be good to go in 2024. And there's no guarantee he makes that rotation either. He was pitching a lot out of the bullpen before. The Brewers may want to ease him back. So Ashby, it's kind of a questionable 5th starter spot right now, but that's what you currently have on the roster. And it certainly is in need of a couple more guys. Colin Ray is your number 4. I'd be a lot more comfortable with Colin Ray being your number 6 heading into the season as your long man out of the bullpen, being a starter when you need a spot or when you go to a 6-man rotation. So I think you need to get 2 more guys to help fill out that rotation.
Colin's a nice pitcher. Did a great job, back and forth from Nashville here and filled in a couple of starts and right from April on when Woody went down. I thought he did a nice job. But we're trying to win a World Series here, and we're talking. He's number 6 guy here, and if we're going to lean on this pitching staff, it's got to be better. What do you think of Gasper? I think a lot of people think Gasper is going to be in this rotation.
Yeah, I think there's a very good chance that he is. He spent the entire season this year in AAA, put up some really good numbers. Plus, him being left-handed is certainly helpful as well because the Brewers currently do not have a left-handed starter option. You have Aaron Ashby, but again, he's coming off of injury. Wade Miley's a free agent. Eric Lauer's a free agent. I would like to see the Brewers re-sign Wade Miley. I think that'd be a smart play for them. But Robert Gasper, I think we're going to be seeing him a bunch this year. I think he's going to come up and get some starts and be a big part of this team down the stretch. Whether he makes it on opening day in that rotation is going to come down to spring training and the players that they get to help fill out. But I think the Brewers should try to get some more veteran experienced arms to help fill in that group to begin with, just to have some depth. And Gasper is going to be pitching a ton of innings for this team regardless, but having those extra guys that you bring in can help give the team enough depth because injuries can obviously happen at any time, and they can hit a rotation pretty hard. So, having some extra depth guys in front of Gasper maybe to start, knowing that he's going to get opportunities throughout the season would probably be the smartest bet for this team to do.
I think probably Miley probably wants a multi-year deal. Now, there were some rumblings that he wanted to retire at one point, but it seems like he wants to because he had a great year. And if he wants a multi-year deal, I don't know if they'd give him that.
Yeah, I don't know if they give him 2 years guaranteed. I mean, he is 37 now, I believe. Getting close to retirement. He had a really great year. I think the Brewers could do another maybe 1-year deal with an option for a second year. I could see something like that being a real possibility. 2 guaranteed years at his age. I think is going to be a tough sell for his agent. But, I mean, this starting pitching market is nuts right now. There are a ton of teams that are starved for starting pitching. A whole bunch of teams want pitching and multiple starting pitchers, and not everyone's going to get them. So for Wade Miley, right now he's in a position of strength on the free agent market. I don't know if he's going to end up getting 2 guaranteed years, but he's going to try. But I don't see the Brewers giving that to him. But 1 year with an option, I think is a very realistic possibility.
Will Burnes be the opening day starter?
Yes, I believe he will be. I believe he stays put. I believe he's going to be your opening day guy for manager Pat Murphy. And I think it's going to be one final ride with Burnes and keep him through, give him the qualifying offer and get the draft pick and compensation. It may not be, the compensation that everyone was originally hoping for, but it is better than nothing. I see this team being competitive at midseason. I don't see a midseason trade. I think they learned their lesson from the Josh Hader trade. They're not going to try anything like that again. But I think Corbin Burnes is going to spend one more year in a Brewers uniform.
Almost want to. I want to keep him because I like him, and I think he's going to be a great pitcher. He's a great pitcher, obviously, but hoping
he's the best. He's the best starting pitcher in franchise history. I mean, let's be honest here. Like there should be no desire to move this guy earlier than necessary. He's the best starting pitcher you've ever had, the most dominant starting pitcher you've ever had. Even if you want to go baback to Teddy Higuera,
that's what I was going to say.
Anybody back then. I mean, it's insane the stuff that he's been able to do. The type of pitcher that the Brewers never had, and some people are just so willingly wanting to get him off the team. It doesn't make sense to me.
I don't understand why Brewer fans, and by the way, Teddy Higuera would be my pick, although his career was cut short because of the rotator cuff. But I feel like a lot of people just want to dump on Burnes. He might get shelled in an outing or so, have a bad outing. But God, I mean, Twitter goes nuts when he struggles.
Yeah, Yeah, because they expect perfection every single time, because that's what the standard has been set at. That's what we've seen from him year after year, and that's just kind of the thing. I mean, I've seen people dumping on him for being a bad big game pitcher, bad playoff pitcher, because he had the one bad start here in the postseason. Corbin Burnes has the only postseason win for the Brewers since 2019. They've won one game from 2019 onward, and Corbin Burnes pitched that game. It was a shutout, I believe. He had a bad start in the postseason against the Diamondbacks. Yes, that's true. But to say that he's a bad big game pitcher overall is just not the case.
Yeah, how about get him some offense? I mean, they get some offense for game one against Arizona. We're not talking about him losing game one. Get the man some offense. Yeah. I mean, he was staked to a 3-0 lead to begin that game. I mean, that's something that he should lock down. But that offense had so many more opportunities later on in that game to add on, to answer back against Arizona, and they did not. Yeah. I like Corbin. I just think I just don't see him being here long term. How about if they're not in the race, if they keep him and they're not in the race come trading deadline, then he's out of here.
If they're not in the race, he's gone.
He's gone.
Yeah.
He's gone.
Yeah. But I think they're going to be in the race. The NL Central is pretty weak. They're going to be at least somewhat involved around the top of that division.
It's probably the most anticipated arbitration settlement, because it's like, all right, the Brewers going to screw him again. There's going to be some drama there again if they go to that, and he loses again, he's going to be mad.
Oh yeah. I don't think it's going to happen again. They did this with Hader too. Yeah. They took Hader to an arbitration hearing. They beat him, and every year after that, until they traded him, they settled with him pretty quickly and easily without too much hassle. So I think both sides know this is going to be the last year. We don't need to make too much of a fuss about it, and they should get it done, because neither side wants to go through what they went through last year. I mean, they went through it, and both the Brewers and Corbin Burnes were like, that was awful. Let's never do that again. So I think they're going to find a way to settle. All
right. We'll ask David when we return from this quick break what he thinks about trading Devin Williams. Hang on. I'll get to you in just a second. Chuck Freeman here, Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Follow us on Google, Spotify, Apple, on all the major downloads. Go to YouTube, search Locked On Brewers. We are there. All right, when we come back, we'll talk to David about and finish wrapping it up. We talked a lot of pitching today, and got to ask him about Adames, too. That's another guy who might be sticking around as well. All that's next here on Locked On Brewers. Welcome back to Locked On Brewers. Chuck Freeman, your host. David Gasper from Reviewing the Brew, joining us here late night, talking Brewers baseball, our favorite baseball team. You think Adames, he's another guy that the insiders are saying, Rosenthal is saying that he's going to stick around. What do you think of that possibility?
Yeah, I think that's the smart move for the Brewers. Adames, even with his struggles offensively this past year, I think he's such an important part of this team as an emotional leader, as a great defensive shortstop, and the power that he brings at the plate. I think that it's a smart move to keep him around for one more year. And, they know they're not going to be able to sign him long term. It doesn't seem like they're really even trying to sign him to an extension, because they know they're not going to be able to afford it. But I mean, you do have Bryce Terang waiting in the wings. And I think another year for him at second base in development, where he can focus on hitting and improving there would be best. But if the Brewers did decide to move on from Adames, they could easily just slide over Bryce Terang. And defensively, they would not skip a beat with Bryce Terang at shortstop. Offensively, he's still going to have some things to work on. And then you need to get a replacement at second base. Oliver Dunn they brought in, but he's really not a proven option either. So I think an Adames trade is more likely than a Burnes trade, but I still don't think it's particularly likely at this point, given, as we've talked about, what they need from this team next year and trying to compete in 2024.
I just don't know what you'd get for Adames, because I feel like his stock has dropped.
I mean, it has a bit, but at the same time, this is a horrible market for shortstops. This is a horrible market for position players. I mean, your top free agent shortstop out there is Ahmed Rosario, I think, and he's not even really a guaranteed starter at the position. So if you're a team that needs a shortstop this year, there's really no other option. Willy Adames is the only potentially available starting caliber shortstop out on the market, whether it be free agent or trade. And because of that, there could be some team desperate enough to upgrade at shortstop that they would pay through the nose in order to get Adames, because defensively, he's fantastic. In the clubhouse, he's everything a team would want. And offensively, even though he's coming off a down year, perhaps it was the WBC missing time with that, not getting a regular spring training. That could have been part of his early season woes. But because of the scarcity of shortstops on the market, that's going to drive up his price at least a little bit.
All right, before I let you go, Devin Williams, it seems like the Brewers, we're talking about Josh Hader, and they never really wanted to give him a contract extension. They just went every year and re-upped him for that 1-year deal. Would you trade Devin Williams because you have a rebate there?
I wouldn't. Not yet anyways. I know we're quickly approaching, at the trade deadline this year. Devin Williams is going to have the same amount of team control as Josh Hader did when he was traded, which is, kind of crazy to believe. But yeah, I still don't see it happening quite yet. Again, I think they learned their lesson on the mid-season trades of those kinds of guys, especially if they're competing. Next offseason, I think it's definitely a possibility. Uribe, I mean, he did have an excellent rookie season, but the Brewers may want to get him a little bit more innings under his belt before they deal away another franchise cornerstone and franchise closer in order to install him in that job.
David, great stuff. Always enjoy reading your stuff. Reviewing the Brew. Terrific Brewers writer. Read his stuff all the time. And he's also the tallest Brewers writer out there at 7'5". Close enough. I would guess you'd be a basketball writer, because you cover the Brewers. But I'm like, man, usually guys with basketball bills are you don't see that many tall guys. I don't know what I'm saying here, but you know what I'm saying. It's more like a basketball writer than you do a baseball writer.
I know that's what everyone assumes when they see me, that I play basketball or something like that. I've even got I bought a shirt online that says, "No, I don't play basketball" on it, just to answer the question.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Just to make sure, because I'll get people looking at me like the whole time, and like one time someone asked me while I was wearing the shirt, and then I just pointed to it, and they're like, "Oh."
That's fantastic. Yeah, because when I first met you, and I was like, "Oh, it's David from Reviewing the Brew." Wow. Okay. I didn't.
He's a lot taller than he sounds like on the radio.
He's a tall baseball writer. Well, anyway, your stuff is really good. I enjoy it, and let's catch up again this winter. How about that? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Call me anytime. I'm happy to hop on.
Awesome. David Gasper, Reviewing the Brew. This is Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. So long, everybody.